Hi and welcome to my kitchen. This is me filming the intro for the vlog after I filmed the vlog. But I'm going to be reading Iron Widow by Xiran Jay Zhao. I probably am saying that wrong, but I'm doing the best that I can. They are a YA author, so I decided to pick it up. I saw some reviews that were last year that were pretty good, and then this year I've seen more that are like more controversial, like dissing on the book, so I wanted to like give it a try. I've read a bunch of things this year that are supposed to be really good that I really disliked, and things that I was supposed to like or things that I was supposed to dislike that I really liked. So maybe I'll like this one. You'll have to watch and find out. So let's do the thing. Alright, so I've just finished the prologue. I'm in bed because I have to go work a night shift, so I was just taking a nap and I decided I'd read for a little bit before I get up. So just finished the prologue of Iron Widow, and I honestly forgot that there was like mech suits and stuff involved. So that was kind of a surprise. I don't know. The writing style is not quite what I was hoping it would be. The size of his mech, as the line is, it was as large as a 7 or 8 story building, and it's giving he was 4 inches taller than 6 feet tall vibes, and I was just like, okay, so it's gonna be that type of writing. I don't know, we'll see. I'm not like super excited about it. The prologue was, I don't like prologues in general typically, and this one was obviously just here to give like information about what kind of world we're in, and I don't know, it's weird and I don't like it, but I guess, sure. I don't like it because we're using like psychic abilities to power these mechs, and then this guy in the beginning, he needs like additional support, so he takes a concubine and like takes over their mind and uses their energy as well. And I just don't know how I feel about that. So it makes a little statement at the end of it's like, she knew what she signed up for, she was willing, and I was like, did she though? If she's like a concubine, like you put in that last little bit so that you like got, consent, but if that's her, like if she's that, I don't know what the class system is in here, but typically that would put her in a lower class system. So is she able to consent to you, who's this like really famous warlord? Like, I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I'm not super excited. And sorry for the AC, but it's summer, it's fucking hot. I just have to show you the chapter name. A butterfly that better not be my dead sister. Okay. Alright, we're doing Fall Out Boy titles. Alright, last check-in before I go to work. So yeah, I've just gotten a little bit farther and I discovered that the concubine pilots do not consent. They're sold as concubine pilots by their family. So there we go. They are from a lower class system. And so therefore consent, as much as the author wanted to convey that the character in the prologue believed there was consent, I don't know if that's what the author is going for, is to say that it's consent, because it's clearly not. So anyway, there's that. I don't know, the writing in this part's a little bit better, but we'll still see what happens. It's first person. I don't know. First person's always hit or miss for me, so we'll see. I was gonna put makeup on before I did any of this today and read some more pages, but 57 pages into a 394 page book, so 16% of the way. Zetienne is not like other girls. You see more than most girls. Most of them are so shy, so dodgy about the things in their minds. Not you. You own right up to them. I guess at least we got this far before she's not like other girls, but seriously, it's 2023. This book was published in 2022. I thought we were done with that. I thought we were done. It's not gonna ruin my experience of it. This is a YA book. Moving on. I'm gonna move on with this and see what happens. I'm gonna try to get to 100 pages today, and then I'll do like a check-in at a quarter of the way through the book. Okay, forgive me. Apparently, dude saying that to main character, and like it's like a thing. He like says it to like every woman. And I was kind of hoping, like I'm waiting for like a book where it's like revealed soon that that's the thing, instead of like letting the main character fall for it for like pages. And I feel a little bit better. I'm 71 pages in, and I do enjoy this character kind of being a badass. Like her stubbornness and kind of dickishness is actually like saving her, and it's not one of those tropes where it's like, oh, you know, I'm a dick because I have brothers, or it's like no, she's just angry, and like that's fine. Like I kind of enjoy having like a young angry woman as like a main character, and it's like it just is, and it's affecting her life like kind of negatively. Like it's making her have issues with her family, and it's making her like she doesn't seem to have friends. She can't make friends with the girls that she was like conscripted with, but it also is helping her survive, but it's having like real life negative effects in ways too. And so I kind of appreciate that a little bit. Okay, so I was gonna get to 100 pages, but I just finished part 1, and if I keep reading this, I'm not gonna do anything else today but read this stupid book. And honestly, it's kind of frustrating because the book it's not well written. The writing is rough and choppy, but it's just action after action after action. There's so much action in this book. The dialogue is kind of crap. People don't talk like that. But like, I don't know what it is about this book, but I'm like actually kind of loving it in it is like junk food TV kind of way. Like this is something that like teenage me would make fun of me for reading right now, but adult me is like, oh my god, this is like when I used to watch Top Model as like my like guilty pleasure TV show, because I hate everything about it, but I love everything about it. I don't know what it is. So I'm gonna take a break. I'm only at page like 89, but that's the end of part 1. I think there's 4 or 5 parts in this book. And she like killed the fucking guy with her mind. And honestly, it's giving mild Firefly vibes with River Tam.
I can kill you with my brain.
Kind of along those vibes, and I kind of love it for that. I wish the dialogue was better. And I wish like the writing wasn't so like kind of choppy, but honestly, for like a first time author, I'll forgive it. And yeah, so positive vibes at the moment, and I did not think this would be a positive one. I was hoping, but I've seen a lot of reviews recently that are like, yeah, this book did not live up to the hype, even though it was like really hyped up like 6 months ago. So yeah, I'm gonna go do some things, and I'm gonna read a little bit later tonight. So I stayed up till like 4 o'clock last night reading. I'm at like, I hit page 200, slow reader, and I am kind of like obsessed with this. It's not that great. Like, I don't understand, but I'm like, I think it's because the main character, and I was telling my boyfriend this last night, she is not a good person. And I am okay with that, because so many fantasy books have like male main characters that are not necessarily good people, and we like those characters anyway. Like, and I'm thinking of like Game of Thrones characters, right? The Mountain. Like, we didn't like him in the beginning, we liked him near the middle. I haven't finished the show because the internet spoiled it for me, and I got really bitter and never picked it back up. So I actually didn't see everything that everybody hates. I stopped at season 5 because the internet spoiled season 6 for me. So, but Game of Thrones characters, right? Like, people that are morally gray, people that aren't necessarily good people, we don't like, but we followed their stories and we liked them because like we liked their story. And I feel that's kind of the same about this. And I did see like some reviews that were like, oh, like she's not likable, she's like aggressive and stubborn and rude, and like, and I was like, yeah, she is. And her backstory makes sense on why she's like that. She did that to survive and not be like completely mentally like destroyed by her environment. And she has consequences for acting that way. Like, there are consequences in the story for it, and I fully understand like that that's hard for some people to see, because she has these two men who were like really nice to her. One of them she trusts because she's known him for years, but she still is wary of him because of everything that she's experienced. The other one she doesn't trust because she's known him a hot minute, and she's like, she knows like other things about his life. Like, she knows that he's a murderer, and she knows that he's a criminal. And when he shows like a softer side to her, she's like, yeah, I don't trust it. It could be an act. And people in like reviews were like upset that she didn't trust him. And I'm like, no, that's survival. Like, just because someone shows you like one side of themselves doesn't mean you automatically trust them, especially when you've known them a hot minute. They're upset that it's not like standard romance trope where she instantly like trusts this guy. And so I can like, I understand that, and I appreciate it. I like that she's aggressive. I don't like her, but I like the choices that the author made for the character and for how her story is playing out. And it makes sense, and it's really hard, I think, for a lot of people to see a female character in a fantasy book or sci-fi. This is like a mixture of fantasy and sci-fi, I think, to be that way, and that we're supposed to cheer for her. Like, everyone in this book is legitimately like a morally gray person. And I don't mean like, because like the murder guy, he's not morally gray, he's a murderer. But like the main character and like her rich guy friend that she like has a big crush on, he is morally gray in a lot of ways. Like, he used his status to like sneak in and to like sneak into where she's at, and kind of has been watching her, and he uses that status to like save her, but he's still like manipulating the situation, and he's manipulating her, and he's using his wealth to do that. He's used his wealth to like worm his way into her life. He also used his wealth to try to stop her when she was in a vulnerable position. He like used his wealth and status to try to manipulate how she would act. That is morally gray, because that in itself is like, it's not good, but he is legitimately doing it from a place of, he doesn't know another way to act necessarily because of his upbringing. He's always just had everything, like, and he's been able to just do whatever he wants. She makes a comment that her just being seen with him when she was younger could have meant that her family could have killed her for like an honor killing. And that puts him in a not good column, because he was hanging out with her for his selfish desires, knowing that she could be killed for that. That puts him in not necessarily a good person category. And she brings that up, which is why she doesn't fully trust him either, because how could he claim to care about her when he knows that spending time with her could have, like, why did it suddenly get so dark? Could have resulted in her, like, in her death. And she is like, so she has killed one person, tried to kill another one. She, like I said in my like little thing, she killed them with her brain. But she did it in an act of self-preservation. She had like to morally like argue with herself about how she felt about that in the long run. She feels a little bit of guilt, but at the same time she's like, he killed so many women in his career as a soldier. It's like, why should I feel bad when he's probably never felt bad? And granted, she doesn't know him and know how he's felt, but still the fact that she saw that he used the same lines over and over to like manipulate her feelings, it's pretty doubtful that he like had the same type of moral conundrum that she did. And she acted on instinct and acted to save herself and vengeance for her sister, because this is the dude that killed her sister. So everyone in this book sucks, like, but they all suck for different reasons, and they all have reasoning to act the way that they act. Everyone's a little immature, but given the way that the social upbringing of everyone and how I understand why they're a little immature, and it's because of the way they've been brought up. I do agree with some of the commenters, the reviewers that said that even the adults talk a little immature, but I genuinely think that's because this is a YA book. It's written for young people, and like, it makes sense that they would kind of talk that way because that's how a young person would view this person talking. And I'm viewing this as the narrator is unreliable, and there's a potential that she is speaking. It's in first person, so there's a very good chance that, you know, if this is a main character telling us back the story, this is how she viewed it happening. This is the words that she viewed them saying, not necessarily this is their exact words. When you have a first person narrator, it makes sense to have the other people talk in a similar fashion to how the person would view them talking and the tone in which they would expect. And because she's an 18-year-old character, this is a YA book, I'm not mad about how the other characters are talking. So that's where I'm at the moment. I'm halfway through, so you got a longer update, and I've been talking for way too long. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna try and finish a little bit more today before I gotta run some errands. It's Friday. I gotta pick up my doggo, and then have weekend stuff with my boyfriend. So we'll see if I can finish this up today or tomorrow, and I'll check in. Okay, so I've just gotten to this part where Zetienne's asking herself, she's like, can I really call myself a strong girl if I'm relying on two boys? And I keep thinking about the reviews that we're talking about. Oh my god, my makeup is like in the middle of my face from me touching my face. Anyway, I keep thinking about the reviews that were like, how is this really feminism when she's like, you know, constantly saying things like this and calling herself a girl instead of like a young woman because she's like 18? How is it feminism when she doesn't know how to talk to other women and she puts them down and like things like that? And I'm like, it's learning. This is like not every, but so many teenage girls of my age, of my generation, we went through this because we grew up in an era when it, like, the whole not like other girls trope was really, really popular in a lot of the media that we consumed. And we were definitely taught that, you know, for us to be actually strong and independent, we had to, like, swear off men and not accept their help and do everything for us, and how, like, letting a man open a door for you was anti-feminism. And I remember going through these arcs of these types of beliefs. And being like, oh, I have to be more masculine and more stereotypically masculine and less stereotypically feminine in order to be a strong person, that any sort of feminism, any sort of femininity was weakness. And I remember these, and I have a feeling this author is close to my age for the fact that she's showing a young woman going through these stages where she's in the first stage of understanding the differences in equality among sexes, and it's amplified by the era and the world that she's building, where women are extremely on a lower tier, and to the point where they're sacrificed and they're treated as maids and servants and can be killed for anything. It's even more extreme. So she's going to have an extreme view in her first steps towards this, and she's going to view other women as potential threats because, which she says on one of the pages, it's basically like they've been told their whole lives that this is how they have to be, that this is how they are, that they're less than, and they only have one purpose in life, and that's to, like, do everything that a man says, and, like, all of those things. And so of course you're not going to trust a woman instantly because you don't know how much they have internalized that and whether they are going to essentially tell on you. And because if they do, it could mean your death. And so I understand people being like, oh, it's not as pro-women as it's supposed to be. And it's, if you look at it from a perspective of someone who has the ability to innately trust other women because of the society that we live in, then yeah. But if you look at it from the society that she's built in this book, which is very specifically built to be extreme and to explain those extremes, that a lot of this stuff did exist in past times in many, many cultures. This is not like her making this shit up off the top of her head. The stuff like this happened. And I mean, there weren't any mechs in it, but stuff like this happened. I really understand it, and I think it's not that deep, but you can make it deeper if you actually think about it. And I think the people who are just instantly getting upset about it aren't thinking about it from the perspective of the story that's written in. And so I do think this actually does a good job of showing the growth of a character, because she is starting to grow and she's starting to learn that she can ask for help, and there are some people in the world that she can trust, that she's not the only one who has these views, and that if she can trust other people, she might actually succeed a little bit more. And the character is starting to learn that. So we're starting to have some character growth. And I'm wondering if the people who gave those reviews finished the book, or if they just kind of stopped paying attention to what was going on, or if they just got set in their own bias. Because it would be really easy in the first 50, 100 pages to be kind of biased about the story. Because, like I said, the writing has some stuff to work on, but it's not horrendous. I have read worse books this year, and not even the random Audible ones that I keep picking up, but I've read worse books that are very popular this year. Fourth Wing. Alright, so I finished the book. It's been 95 degrees lately, so different background. Welcome to my D&D stuff. Because this is the floor with the best AC, and I just took a shower to try to cool down. It is incredibly hot. So, finished the book. I'm giving it 4.5 stars, and I think the main thing that I want to talk about that I haven't super touched on so far is that the main character, I've seen things where people are making reviews upset about how it's not real feminism and it gives feminism a bad name because it's feminism is man-hating. And I can see people making that take, but I can also don't agree with that take, because I genuinely think that she's not written as a feminist character, and I went to the author's page and I looked, and they didn't say anything about this being a story about feminism. This is a story using the first and only female emperor as the protagonist of the story, and it's based on her, and then taken a bunch of liberties. And so it's not about feminism, it's not about equality, it's about women clawing themselves from being a lower caste member, not even a class system, but a caste system where women are lower. And that can be feminism. That's maybe the basis of feminism, because when you talk about feminism from my perspective as a white woman in America, I have a different I have different things of feminism that I have the privilege to embody. I don't have to do violent acts. I don't have to fight to be allowed to drive a car or have a bank account or all of those things because of the part of society they live in. There are women in America that have to do that, but I don't. So if I'm viewing it through my lens of feminism, I would say this isn't feminism. But if you go back to the era that they have set this book in, that she, the main character, is living in, you would have to be violent in order to establish any sort of equality. And that being said, the main character, Zetian. I should look up how to say this. Hold on. So it's Wu Zetian is how you say it. So looked it up. And yeah, it's definitely something I should have done before I started recording. But she's not a heroine archetype. She's an anti-hero. Her goals are, while they are to advance society, she's not specifically following that hero archetype of saving one specific person or going through the hero's journey in the standard way. I would put her on the class with an anti-hero. She's more like a Black Widow, a Deadpool. She's like along the lines of the characters that she has one goal in mind and she will get there through any means necessary. And she's not afraid to compromise the morals that she was given at birth to advance her goals. And that makes her not necessarily a hero, but an anti-hero. Because she's like getting her shit done, but not in the expected way. And so I appreciated that a lot. And I think the people who are looking at it through the lens of modern day feminism and being like, this is not, you know, she's not a good role model for that. No, she's not, because that's not what she's fighting in. She's fighting in a system that is killing young girls and young women. I think she says like one of the other pilots that lived started when she was 13 or 14. And she was just going to be sacrificed because her family needed the money. And there are eras in our history where girls were sold at that age, probably. There are parts of the US where young girls are still married off at that age. So it definitely happens in other parts of the world. And so to just say that's an era in history, but this is specifically set around an era where that type of thing happened all the time. And genuinely, you can't look at it through a modern lens. You need to put yourself in that period of time. And at the very least, it's not like a George R.R. Martin thing where the characters... How old was Daenerys in the book? 13? Like, at least she's not 13 and dealing with all of this. She's at least 18. And for people to be like, oh, I love Daenerys, who was married off for political reasons and then just started fucking killing people, but then to be like, oh, I don't like how this character's written because she just kills people to advance her, like, her plot. What's the fucking difference? So anyway, that's my frustration with it. The dialogue was not amazing. It was lacking some, but it very much worked with what was happening in the story for me. I found some of it really funny. There's a scene where the strategist that they're helping, that's helping them, like, is trying to help them escape a room. And so he picks up Shimon, the big guy. He picks him up and like runs off the room with him. And he's like, you can't shoot me. I'm like, you know, I'm like high up in the military. You can't shoot me. And then he yells for Yizzy, who on the author's website, they say, Yizzy's just there. And I kind of liked that. So, but he picks up Zetienne and he's like, you can't shoot me, I'm rich. And it really made me laugh, like really hard, like harder than I should have. But honestly, like, so there's like commentaries on like wealth and the power that wealth gives you, and the, like, you know, the privilege that it gives you and the immunities that it gives you, and how it puts you in you live in an entirely different world if you're wealthy than if you grow up poor like Zetienne did. And I really like that. I like how the character grew, and as she grew, like, not like aged, but as she like experienced and developed her like point of view, where she just started off with like, oh, every man except for Yizzy is like a piece of shit, because they all just, like, she'd been told her whole life, you know, a man will basically like SA you as soon as he can because that's all you mean to him. But then she meets Shimon, who actually has like some morals where her, like, the first pilot that she meets does not. And then this guy is, you know, he's a violent murderer. He's not supposed to have any morals, but his morals are stronger than the one who's not a violent murderer, is still a murderer, but not a violent one. And so his morals confuse her because it's not what she expected. And so it's her kind of being like, oh, okay, well, so people are different. And as she develops, her language develops and the dialogue improves as we go through the book. So I was taking this as the perspective of looking at it through how an 18-year-old views the world. And an 18-year-old who's kind of just starting to be like, oh, feminism this and feminism that, is going to be very black and white about things. I was when I was that age. Maybe not everybody is, but it's pretty common. I was when I was that age. My nibbling when they were younger was like that, when they first started like noticing these things, at like 14, 15. And you go through those black and white things, and then you start to realize, okay, you know, I don't have to be like, oh, fuck you because you want to open a door for me. You can you can accept help. And I think seeing the main character, seeing her go through that transformation and that development made the story much better for me. But looking at it through a first-person perspective, with everything being in her perspective and everything being from her, and her being like, well, this person said this to me, I read it as it was her writing out her story. So when you get a adult character who speaks in a weird way that seems more childish, it makes sense, because when you talk to someone who's in that age bracket and they tell you a story of how they had a conversation with an older person, they don't tell you verbatim what that person said. They tell you what they heard. So I looked at it through that lens, and maybe it's just because I've been DMing games for a couple of 18 and 19-year-olds in the last few years, where I have spoken to them so much that when they tell me what I said, I'm like, that is not what I said at all, but it's what they heard. So if I just put myself in that perspective of like, well, how would I have interpreted this situation when I was that age? It was a lot easier to like suspend my disbelief in the way that people talked. But that being said, all of that together, I really felt like this was a good YA story. It's much better than some of the other books I've read this year. The writing, like I said, wasn't amazing, but for like a first-time author, I really appreciated it. And I thought that at least there wasn't any, like, I didn't have any glaring grammatical errors that I saw. And I thought the plot kept moving. There weren't a bunch of like gratuitous scenes that weren't necessary. Every scene advanced the plot. That they had some like really good editing, I think, as far as like making sure that everything that she did was like like important. And so there were some like time skips and stuff, but not a whole lot, because everything happens over the span of like 2 months or something like that. And then that's the other thing, is the main character had like consequences for her actions. She was kind of a piece of shit, and so shitty things happened to her because she was kind of a piece of shit. And I'm just so tired of like, maybe it's because I've read like a lot of romanticies this year, trying to like, you know, see if there's any I like. There hasn't been. But there were so many female main characters that they have no consequences for their actions at all, or very minimal consequences. Zetienne gets basically paralyzed through the book. Sorry, I'm fidgeting. Because of her actions. And that's something that she has to live with because of something she did to herself. So I think it's a good first book in a series, and I'll probably pick up the rest of them. I might do the next one on audio, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I give it a 4.5, so I'll probably pick up more from this author. I find them entertaining. I definitely was like tricked into reading the book by their Instagram reels, which are really funny. So yeah, I'm happy I read this. It was not a waste of my time like some of the other ones I read this year. So I hope you got something out of this, and if you disagree with anything I say, feel free to tell me why I'm an idiot, or tell me where I messed up, or where you interpreted something different, because I'm genuinely curious. So thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time.